A sinuous lake appears in the west. Who knows from whence? From behind a rocky promontory. And it disappears in the east. Who knows where? Behind a modest summit. All around there are great mountains, whose roots are planted deep in the green waters which they surround on all sides, and which mirror their solemn majesty. A timid handful of villages is visible, some concealed in the shady valleys, others basking in the sun amidst olive groves and vineyards, but all, one might conjecture, like small creatures ready to scramble for safety at any unusual sound. If you seek out the name and location in a geographical dictionary, you would be audaciously informed that it lies on the Italian border with Switzerland. This is the introduction to a collection of poems dedicated to the Valsolda by one of the leading Italian novelists of the late 19th century, Antonio Fogazzaro, who set his masterpiece Piccolo Mondo Antico in the village of Oria where his mother was born. The writer retained close ties to the Valsolda, seduced by the spell cast by this delightful patch of mountains which emerges from the waters of Lake Ceresio. Dizzasco is a graceful hamlet stitched together by steps and alleyways. At each corner one encounters a portico, a gallery or a loggia, and it takes only a little imagination to populate them with characters from distant times. Thanks to its position at the centre of the arc of the Valsolda, Dizzasco is the ideal place from which to embark on an exploration of the pathways which crisscross these mountains. The Sastimon is an indispensable destination, a monumental pulpit of rock where a tragic plane crash occurred 30 years ago. Even now, traces of the accident emerge from the forest at the base of the lofty cliff where the event took place. Leaving the ghosts of the past behind, the climb leads swiftly to the cross on the summit, from which the gaze embraces wide horizons, erasing the gloomy atmosphere which the sight of the tragic accident evoked. An easy hike along the sinuous pathway between rocks and grassy slopes leads quickly to the panoramic summit, from which the view is ample and luminous. On the open slopes, dominated by the Cima di Noga, clusters of conifers alternate with rocky outcrops, and, thanks to the varied landscape, the views of the lake and surrounding mountains are constantly changing. Going round the rocky belts of the Cima di Noga, you traverse the crest and a beechwood before descending to the Bizzo torrent shortly before it cascades into the Val Galline. One visits the secluded Alpenores, which, like many alpine pasture huts of the Valsolda, has been partially renovated as a refuge for hikers. The climb continues up a small wooded valley, and in half an hour one reaches the Passo di Biancabella, which is on the border with the Swiss Valsolda. Following the signs, proceed along the crest until you reach the Cima di Fiorina, the highest peak in the Valsolda. The majestic Torrione di Fiorina is but a short distance away, and after an easy climb we reach the summit. Despite the modest elevation, the sensation of altitude is remarkable. A lesser summit, for sure, but the whole of the Valsolda is a miniature sculpted with taste and harmony. A few hours of walking suffice to demonstrate how beauty is most intimate when distilled in small dimensions. Its fragility mirrors that of ourselves, who we are, that which we possess. A quick descent leads to the Alpe Mappel, where a welcoming table, drinking fountain and romantic bench await. From here, at the right time of day, one can be seduced by the echoes of the sunset concealed behind the distant mountains, and the cool, dark surface of the lake is ignited and flooded with the final rays. Many of the mountains of the Valsolda offer glorious views of the lake. Monte dei Pizzoni actually mirrors itself in the waters. The Dolomia rock slabs, which clad its most visible flank, seem to have been stolen from more conspicuous peaks in the Eastern Alps. And on calm days, they duplicate to infinity in the lake below. The climb up Monte dei Pizzoni departs from the cobbled alleyways of the tranquil village of Drano. The path makes its way up the steep western flank, occasionally affording a preview of the spectacle that awaits at the summit. The route is far from straight and monotonous, as it meanders between rocky outcrops and tortuous hairpins. We reach a characteristic fissure, which requires the use of hands to negotiate, almost as though it demands fingerprints to know who is requesting access. The crossing is easy enough and leads to the secret realm of the summit. The top of the Monte dei Pizzoni is like a rocky wave, frozen and preserved for eternity on its lofty perch. Rocks and water, solids and liquids. The opposites which hold not only creation in balance, but also us, the inhabitants of a world which we often abuse and take even the most precious things, such as a sip of fresh water, for granted.